There's a moment in every woman's life, usually somewhere between the group chat, the office meeting, and a dinner, where you're pretending not to mind something you absolutely mind. When a quiet little question starts whispering in the background of your life. The question being, do I want them to like me, or do I want them to respect me? Because strangely enough, those two things don't always travel together. And if you're here watching this video, something tells me you've probably felt that tension before. Maybe it shows up when you soften your opinion so it lands better in the room. Maybe it's when you laugh at something that isn't actually funny. Or maybe it's when you say, no worries, even though internally there are, in fact, several worries. So today we're talking about something quietly complicated. What's actually better, being liked or being respected? And before we get into it, I want you to know something. By the end of this video, you'll have 4 journal prompts that will help you unpack your relationship with approval, boundaries, and self-trust. Because this conversation isn't really about other people. It's about the subtle negotiations we make with ourselves just to belong. So if you have your journal nearby, wonderful. If not, you can simply carry these questions with you as you move through your day. Either way, today we're turning a page on a question many of us were never taught to ask. There's something women learn very early in life. It's not written in a textbook, it's not formally taught in school, but somehow we all absorb it. The social currency of being liked. The agreeable girl is liked. The easygoing coworker is liked. The friend who never makes things awkward is liked. And for a long time, that feels like the goal. Because being liked feels warm, it feels safe, it feels like belonging. But somewhere along the way, many of us notice something interesting. Being liked often requires a little bit of editing. Editing our tone, editing our reactions, editing our boundaries. Just small adjustments. A softened opinion here, a swallowed frustration there. Nothing dramatic, just enough to keep the room comfortable. And for a while, it works beautifully. People describe you as so nice, which, if we're honest, is sometimes the emotional equivalent of being called a decorative pillow. Pleasant, soft, not expected to hold too much weight. Now don't get me wrong, being liked isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's human. We're wired for connection. We want people to enjoy our company. We want to feel welcomed in the rooms we enter. But respect is a slightly different currency. Respect doesn't always arrive with smiles. Sometimes it arrives with a pause. Sometimes it arrives when someone realizes you're not quite as easy to push around as they assumed. Respect tends to appear the moment you stop negotiating your worth for comfort, and that moment is rarely liked by everyone. I remember realizing this in my mid-20s. Up until that point, I had built a fairly reliable reputation for being accommodating. If plans changed last minute, no problem. If someone overstepped, I'd smooth it over. If I was uncomfortable, I'd find a way to make it charming. I was, by all accounts, extremely likable. But one day it hit me. The more agreeable I became, the less seriously I was taken. Not maliciously and not intentionally, just subtly. My opinions became optional. My time became flexible. My boundaries became negotiable. And that's the tricky thing about being liked for your flexibility. People get very comfortable bending you. Respect, on the other hand, behaves very differently. Respect appears when people understand your limits, not because you're harsh, not because you're intimidating, but because you are clear. Clear about your time, clear about your energy, clear about what you will and won't tolerate. And clarity, my friends, is rarely the most likable thing in the room. It's just the most honest. Now, here's where it gets interesting. A lot of women believe they must choose one or the other, liked or respected, soft or strong, warm or boundaried. But the truth is, the real goal isn't replacing one with the other. It's deciding which one you're willing to sacrifice when they collide. Because occasionally they will. There will be moments when speaking honestly makes someone uncomfortable, moments when a boundary disappoints someone, moments when choosing yourself slightly rearranges the way others see you. And in those moments, a quiet little choice appears. Do I preserve their comfort, or do I preserve my self-respect? The first few times you choose respect, it can feel wildly unnatural. Your heart races. Your brain immediately wires 10 apology emails you haven't sent yet. And part of you wonders if you're suddenly becoming difficult. But here's the strange magic of self-respect. The more you practice it, the calmer it feels. And eventually you realize something surprising. The people who truly value you don't disappear when you become clear. They simply adjust. And the ones who only liked you because you were endlessly accommodating, well, those relationships tend to reveal themselves rather quickly. Which, inconvenient as it may feel, is actually a form of emotional clarity. And clarity, much like a good journal entry, is rarely comfortable in the moment, but it's always useful. So the question isn't really, is it better to be liked or respected? The question is, who do I become when I stop trying to earn approval? Because when you stop performing likability, something fascinating happens. You begin to discover your real voice, the one that doesn't need to soften every sentence, the one that knows the difference between kindness and self-abandonment. And that voice is often quieter than people expect, but it is infinitely more powerful. Before we wrap up today, let's bring this conversation somewhere personal, because reflection is lovely, but journaling is where clarity actually begins. Before we dive into the prompts, grab your journal and your pen, or simply carry these questions with you as you move through your day. Let them help you notice the places where you might be choosing approval over alignment. Where in my life do I feel the strongest pressure to be liked? Is it at work, in friendships, in dating, or within my family? And how does that pressure influence the way I speak, behave, or set boundaries? Think about a recent moment when you held back an honest opinion or feeling. What were you afraid might happen if you had expressed yourself fully? What does being respected actually look like to me? How would I know I was experiencing it in my relationships, my work, and my daily life? If I trusted that the right people would still value me even when I'm honest and boundaried, how might I start showing up differently? this conversation resonated with you, save this video for your next journaling session, and I'd love to know your answers to today's question. Down in the comments, tell me, what's one situation where you're learning to choose respect over being liked? Sometimes saying it out loud is the first step towards believing it. And until next time, keep writing, keep reflecting, and keep turning the better page.